fellow nerds. When it comes to model railroading, my favorite dive bar is somewhere between scratch building and kit bashing, and I usually tend toward the bashing. There's just so many good kits out there, especially from times long, long ago. Therefore, a question I ask a lot is, what's that kit? Welcome to Rust and HO Scale. Today's video is a walkthrough of the 24-foot Boxcar out of the Backwoods work train. The kit was released as a limited edition in 1995 by Sierra West Scale Models. Brett Gallant, Plano, Texas, is the creator of this kit. Though it is no longer available, I believe you can order a 30th anniversary version now. The entire set is actually 13 cars built with a mix of media. The 24-foot Boxcar is a resin casting, and as you can see, there's a great detail on this. All the wood planks, the door detail, the carriage bolts, and even the nail holes are part of the casting. It's a really great model. But first, I should apologize for not starting at the beginning. After a couple of base coats, I imagine that some other folks might find this interesting, so I started a YouTube channel. In this process, hopefully, I'll gain some skills as a modeler, and maybe you'll watch me grow as a YouTuber. After rattle can coats of tan and mud, I settled on this light blue color by Tamiya. I had bought it previously just because I liked it. Now I have a project for it. After I brushed it on, I then accented the details with oiled earth by Vallejo. It's meant for weathering, so it's a little watered down already. It falls nicely in the cracks and accents the shadows. We pick up here after I had just drilled the 36th hole for the grab irons. I created the grab irons by bending 020 steel piano wire, so I used a number 76 drill bit and a pin vise to drill the holes. The grab irons are about a 1/4 inch wide, so I found a spot on my pliers where I could bend them in 90 degrees, then re-grip it and just bend it again at that same spot, and it would become a 1/4 inch. Finding the perfect tooth in the needle nose pliers gives you that perfect length grab iron every time. Once I knew the exact spot on the pliers that would create a 1/4 inch grab iron, I put a piece of tape there. Then I could just line the wire up with the piece of tape and bend it the same way every time. I intentionally cut them a little longer, but I probably shouldn't have done it intentionally. But my dad used to say, you can't cut it longer if it's too short. This first one was fun, but many of them were not so easy. I think the British would call these fiddly. Brett provided a template in the kit, which again would have been nice to picture here. The template showed you where to put the first hole, but then you were supposed to mark the second hole using paint on the actual grab iron. I just marked all the holes on the template and then drilled them all at once. I suppose it worked out pretty well, like 70% of them came out fine. Here you'll notice me using an X-Acto knife to kind of fine-tune the height of these. Other than drilling them perfectly in a vertical row and then making sure that they're perfectly level, this may be the most important thing. Good news though, once they're in, they seem pretty durable. I haven't had to repair any. It took me about 4 hours to complete these, but I'm pretty slow and I haven't done a lot of grab irons on cars before. It took me an hour to drill the holes, an hour to bend and test fit, then another hour to install them. In the footage, you'll see me fiddling, re-drilling, pushing, pulling, hammering. There's even a shot of me gluing one to my finger. But eventually, they did all get in and they do look great. I think they were totally worth the time. Smartly, I painted the grab irons beforehand. Then I marred them all up while installing them, so now I get to paint them all again. I'm using this Floqual Oxide Red, mostly because I just have it. It's a good base color of rust, and it's an enamel, so it'll stick better to the steel wire. Obviously, the majority of this car is wood, and the paint is meant to look extremely weathered. Therefore, I decided to paint all the metal parts my favorite color, rust. I started with the door sliders, 2 each, top and bottom. There are 4 door handles, which are partially part of the casting, but also partially a piece of bent steel wire. On each corner there is a bracket or brace, which I assume is metal and thus probably rusted. And lastly, after touching up all of the handholds, I wanted to paint the carriage bolts, or are these coach bolts? They're on the bolster or the bulkhead? I'm not sure. Educate me, because I'm probably entirely wrong about these. A reminder, this is just the base coat of rust. Next step is everyone's favorite, dry brushing. I don't airbrush much, even though I've had one for 40 years. I'm using too small of a brush here, actually, and sometimes I use a bigger brush for this kind of stuff. Dry brushing, I'm sure, is a technique you could look up and do a bunch of different ways. I just kind of blot the paint and then swipe across the items that I'm dry brushing. and then along with the things that I'm dry brushing. I usually start delicately, and then there's that point where you realize the brush has just the perfect amount of paint, and then I just go pretty aggressive. And that's when it comes out perfect. Perfect unless you paint an entire grab iron, which then you'll get to repaint it later. By the way, dry brushing is a really excellent way to ruin a perfectly good brush, so grab those old worn out favorites for this. I mean, your brushes might last longer if you just smashed them against the concrete. So here's the result so far. Pretty good. Decals. The decals in the Sierra West kit were 30 years old and had deteriorated considerably. Brett no longer had the artwork, so I recreated the original artwork, then changed all the artwork. I had these custom made. The provided road name was Deer Creek, and I figure every example of this finished kit has that road name. So I dreamed up Santa Clara River Valley Railroad. It's a plausible branch line of the Southern Pacific, north of LA in the Sierras. Most of my train has Santa Clara or Santa Clara River Valley or SC or SCRV. This car has Santa Barbara and Ventura County. It's the only car on the train that's got this labeling on it, and it reflects a transitional period or a borrowed or stolen or inherited car. The whole train is meant to be patched together out of stuff they had lying around, and having slightly different lettering on each car tells that story. Action Scale Graphics is where I had these decals printed. I'm pretty good with graphics, and they had no issue accepting my artwork. I researched about 5 different potential vendors for this, and all of them wanted to charge me between a $35 and a $75 artwork prep fee. Fusion didn't. That was the biggest key for me. It was just the cost of the printing and the paper, and I'm done. I ordered on Monday, got them on Thursday, $35 out the door. It was awesome. By the way, if I'm being honest, I pulled this one off because it dried crooked and I had an extra. I have a ton of Champs decal sets, so I pilfered this stat block, and I'm 100% sure that the details aren't even close to accurate, as this modern Southern Pacific boxcar, which is far bigger and more modern, and therefore entirely wrong. But as you probably noticed, I just cut off the extra zeros and called it good. I suppose there's probably a way to know the right numbers and to source the right decals. I'm always happy to learn. Leave a comment and tell us what you might do differently. Not that I don't care about accuracy, but I tend to focus on texture and color. This detail in my mind is that. It's a visual texture. It's in the right place, it's the right color, it looks right. I feel that 99% of the folks will notice and appreciate the artistic look and the emotional accuracy of the nostalgia, and only 1 out of 10,000 people will notice and mentally criticize the accuracy. When they do, I'll just kind of respond with a shrug. You see the 48 there as well, so the 48 is the number that I chose to put on this car in honor of Daryl the Moose Johnston, fullback of the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s. I think Brett's original suggestion was 47, but I like the Moose. Here's the way the decals turned out, just fine. Obviously they have a sheen that we'll correct, and they need to conform to the casting shape better, but we'll work on those things. Corrugated aluminum. Brett suggests to use tar paper. Maybe that would be more typical, but I did tar paper on the caboose. And since I have a bunch of Campbell's corrugated aluminium, I decided to use that. I evaluated all the sizes that I have and settled on the 10-foot scale size because that's the one I had the most of. I only need 1 sheet, so let's go. I chose to brush on some neutral gray. I couldn't find my gray primer, and that probably would have been a better choice as a base coat, but this worked. After the gray base coat, I found the best thing is this Rust-Oleum Rust Primer. It's primer in the color of heavily rusted metal. Just my favorite. I did it outside, and I didn't bother to take the camera out there and film it because, well, I'm sure you can imagine it. Math is hard. Corrugated metal sheets are commonly 3 foot wide, a la 36 inches. To calculate 36 inches in scale, you'll divide 36 by 87. Something around 0.41 inches is the right answer, class. I marked it on my little cutting scrap of cardstock, lined up the aluminum with the mark, and just put a little tick in the piece of paper where I wanted to cut it. And then I moved it to the other mark and ticked it again. Lined it up, ticked it again. Now I'm on like 2x or 3x or 5x speed, I don't know. It took me a lot longer than this to do it, but it worked out fine. I didn't have to measure the cut down the middle because I'm going to put a roof walk which will cover the center. So now the pieces are roughly 3 foot by 5 foot in scale. Plausible. I highly prefer barge contact cement for projects like this, but guess what? It's all dried up. Dang my Texas garage. Well, we'll just use E6000, but it scares me though when it says there's no odor, and guess what? It didn't work. This Gorilla construction adhesive? Nope, can't glue my fingers together with that. Clear Grip Gorilla Glue. I don't even know what this stuff is. Let's give it a try. There's probably better options. I had some Walther's goo, but I didn't like the way this stuff stays wet. I'm not sure that if it's just my bad application of it, but this stuff did just fine. Frankly, that barge stuff is the best though. I spread it out, I make a big mess on my piece of paper there, continually reapplying, letting them dry, fiddling with them, getting them on, put some on the Boxcar. I think I could have done the whole car, and then just all the pieces, and then let it all dry and tack up, and then put it together. But yeah, ultimately, it stuck on there just fine. By the way, I wish all this was in focus. You're wondering how I have the piece and have it on the car. Anyway, this is how it looks after I've applied the roof. As promised, we're going to work on these decals and get them to shape better against the casting. So the idea here is to use your X-Acto knife if they're a sponsor, or your hobby knife if they're not, slicing through the decal and just letting it rest there in between the boards. Once I've done this on all our spots, then we'll be able to apply more microsole, which is different than microset, and it would be able to melt the decal a little bit so it falls into those cracks and adheres better into those surfaces that are unevenly textured like these. Northeastern Scale Lumber, let's have a round of applause. So I've got some sticks. 2 of them are 2x6, 1 of them is a 2x4 scale size. In the empty Tamiya container, I've mixed about 20 drops of India ink into about an ounce of alcohol, and that's what I've stained them with. I've measured the car wrongly, so I screwed this up. Had to redo it all. Cut the boards to the right length this time. What I decided here is that they probably were no 24-foot boards in real life, so I cut these all to about 8 foot, and put a little stringer underneath each one to hold them in place. It was all a bit of a pain. One stick gave me 9 pieces, so that worked out nice, and I kind of organized them randomly because I didn't want them to look exactly perfect. Good news is I have a brand new bottle of Elmer's Glue All. This isn't super clear here. 1, it's not in focus, but 2, what I'm doing is I used a clamp to hold the 3 pieces in place. Then I put the stringer on. Then I added the clamp to the stringer to hold it in place and removed the first clamp. Then I added the second stringer and reclamped it. I'm sure everyone does it this way. We need to dull up those fancy decals. Tamiya Flat Clear is fantastic. A lot of people like using Tester's dull coat, and I'm sure it's fine. I just don't have any. I have nothing against it. I had this, so I'll use this. This is just to take the sheen off of those decals. Everything else is pretty flat, but I painted the other areas a little bit just to blend it. The flatness must blend. More Bombay ink here. I don't think the brand of the India ink matters though. You can pick any brand you want. I mean, it's been around 100 years or 500 years. So now I've got my little pieces together, and you can see how they're constructed with the 2x4 on the back side of the 2x6s. And then I've just soaked them down again with a little more India ink mixture. 20 drops seems like the right amount per ounce. Sometimes you want it a little darker and a little lighter. Just add 2 coats if you want it darker. So super glue to the rescue. I just glued these right on. They were a little fiddly. I was worried about getting them centered, so I placed one, then glued the centerpiece. After that was in place, I glued one end piece, then I glued the other. And as you can see how the wood's not evened up, it's not meant to be. A little imperfection adds to the charm. Oh, this is becoming one of my favorite weathering paints. It's called Oiled Earth. It's the Mecha series by Viejo. Mecha is, I think, only for Transformers. I'm trying to dirty up these decals. They're a little too white, The final result as filmed here, they still aren't dirty enough. I'll have to come back with some full strength paints, etc. in a minute. This stuff is great though for adding depth. Viejo's weathering line is basically just a watered down version. It's not as expensive as their full strength paint, so it's kind of okay value. Now I've gone to a full strength paint. I'm actually using the Vallejo Rust, Stain, and Streaking set. There are 8 paints in this set, all just for creating realistic rust effects. The first step is dark rust, and one of my favorite colors, so we're randomly applying this to all the decals as well as the rust pieces. It's a whole process here, but I only used part of it. Ultimately, we're combining in layers my base coat of rust, some light rust, some dark rust, light rust again, and kind of using less and less each time. On to the final assembly. Trucks and couplers. You thought I was going to leave that little screw. Here's a shot at the bottom of the car. Katie sprung trucks are the recommended wheel set for these, but I may switch out the wheels later to Proto 2000s. The coupler pockets are part of the casting. They accept a Katie coupler with some modification to the coupler box cover. It requires a bit of shaping in order to get it to fit. After placing the coupler springs, I add a little piece of foam to support the coupler. This way it doesn't run away just when I get ready to glue my other piece. I fouled it off camera and I've glued it to my finger. Doing the second one now with a better shot. A bit of CA glue to the edges only, then place into the casting to hold the coupler. One of the greater challenges with this kit was the need to drill the hole and then tap the hole to accept the number 2 screw to mount the trucks. The material was soft, and I'd say about 1 out of 20 of the holes I managed to strip the threads. But the resin was a little easier than the white metal. It would have been nice to show you that process. Sorry for that. I was just demonstrating here how to properly use a coupler gauge. I probably could have gotten you a better angle, but it did match up pretty well. I kind of already knew that they were going to need a washer, and I wasn't sure if they were going to need maybe 2. So we're almost done with this little guy, and obviously screwing these trucks in isn't too difficult. I'm betting you don't need a tutorial on this, though as slow as I am at it, you might think I need a course. Here's the final result, and I'll recap my things that I might have done different. The weight of this car turned out to be 4 ounces, and in NMRA standard it should be 3 1/4 ounces. Knowing that, I probably would have drilled out some of the weight from the bottom side of the casting. Some would also say that I maybe need more undercarriage details, but I just don't see the value in things that aren't visible. I probably will add a brake wheel on a rod, and I need to add more weathering on the decal. Overall, I'm pleased with the result. It's a good little car. It's going to be a good little piece of rolling stock, and now you know what it might look like if you had one, and you'd know what's that kit. Here's the progress on the rest of the work train. Enjoy, and let me know if you'd like me to do more of these cars in the coming weeks. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe if you'd like to support me. Until next time, keep on modeling, and I'll see you soon.